of that total cost. Out of that $90 million, there's $40 million worth of bonds that are authorized to reimburse the developer for the infrastructure cost that has been put into the ground. The developer is going to pay all of those costs up front, and then over time, bonds will be issued, general obligation unlimited tax bonds will be issued to repay those development costs that are eligible and approved. The tax rate, although unlimited, is targeted at $3 in that particular CFD, and in most CFDs, there's a target tax rate that's established. That tax rate then, when you go to reimburse the developers and sell bonds, is what supports the bond issue. And we want to make sure that we don't sell all $40 million up front. We do it over time, and you acquire through the CFD the infrastructure as assessed valuation grows as homes are sold. And so each year or every other year, they come back and they look to sell bonds. Now, you could also sell assessment bonds, which are bonds that are backed by the value of the land. The value of the land for purposes of a CFD is the bulk sale of land value. That value on a lot may be $14,000. On a 4-to-1 ratio, you might be able to borrow $3,500 per lot and then pay for that over time, maybe $350 per lot per year. Back to the $3 tax rate example, on a home that's valued at $200,000, the $3 tax rate would cost about $500 per year, and as the value of the home goes up, the amount of the tax that you pay as they borrow more would also go up. One of the other questions that we wanted to kind of focus on is, have there been any commercial CFDs formed? And to date, there haven't been any commercial CFDs formed. There may be components of a CFD that are commercial, but no CFDs that are exclusively commercial. And how does this affect the city? And kind of to sum up and perhaps review a little bit of what Michael was saying, the city is, once the CFD formed, the city council acts as the board of directors for the community facilities district. So the CFD board ends up each year setting the budget, making sure that you get an audit, setting the tax rate, and then from time to time issuing bonds. Now, how is this paid for? The CFDs can levy up to a 30-cent O&M tax. That may or may not cover those administrative costs. Those administrative costs, by agreement, typically are covered. Those shortfalls are covered by the developers. And that's the Reader's Digest condensed version.
One which we understood perfectly, I'm sure.
And so now at this point, we'd like to, see if there's any specific questions and we could answer them in greater detail.
Through you, Chair.
Yes, Mr. Alton.
What I understand then is that if a developer doing single-family dwellings has a CFD, and the CFD is impacting those people who buy those homes, the residents.
Correct.
Right? And that it is disclosed blatantly in all the closing documents that there is, in fact, a lien on the property.
Correct. There are specific instructions that are given to the home seller at the time the original sale of the home occurs. Unfortunately, if someone's very excited about buying a home and they're signing a lot of papers, they may not completely understand that they're in a community facilities district and there's likely to be either an annual assessment or an additional tax that's placed on them.
Right. And I wanted to stress that this is not an impact on all the citizens of Surprise, only in that development area that is being developed that is a CFD.
That's correct.
Right. Does the resident or the owner of the new property that they just bought, single-family dwelling, do they have the option of paying this it's not an assessment, but this lien off prior to the maturity of the bonds?
With general obligation bonds, no. With assessment bonds, it depends on how the assessment was placed on the property and how the assessment comes off. It's possible that an assessment is paid off at the time of sale at the first home buyer, or it's possible that it's running with the property. Assessments can be paid off early, but it's a somewhat complicated process of determining what the payoff is and how then you call in bonds to pay it off.
And the lenders then most likely would subordinate their debt to an assessment and this bond?
Just like any other property tax.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you help me understand, am I correct in thinking that this particular workshop is being driven more by a commercial CFDs rather than residential at this point?
I think the plan is that to address it in both regards. CFD, while they haven't been formed specifically for commercial purposes to this point, one of the proposals that we will have on the 28th is to create an addendum, which is called a commercial CFD component, which would actually allow for community facilities districts to be formed for commercial purposes. To date, of the 50-some or so that have been created, they've only been for residential, although there have been commercial components within those. But one of the things we've been looking at is to try and figure out ways in which commercial development can happen within the city of Surprise, and by which we can provide assistance in that and provide them another mechanism for reducing their cost of infrastructure, making it more affordable for commercial development to happen in Surprise. And that's one of the reasons why we're bringing forward a commercial CFD policy for you to consider, or an addendum to the policy. And we've already got one entity that's already inquiring as to whether or not they can do a commercial CFD. And so that is one of the reasons why we're proposing that policy modification to you. So did I answer your question about the commercial piece, or was I indecisive? It's for both. We have a policy modification which is addressing the residential piece, and there are some modifications which on the 28th we'll be bringing forward to modify our current policy. But then there's also an addendum piece which is for the commercial piece, which is designed to enhance the ability to do commercial CFDs.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair.
Yes, sir.
Unlike residential, where they have individual property owners that get an individual tax bill, and then they pay that tax plus whatever the, not assessment, whatever the bond happens to be on the payout of that bond, right? Commercial is developed by the developer, sometimes is completely then owned by the developer, and everything is leased. The spaces are leased for the tenants. And there's only one tax bill. And so then that owner, the developer, would then be obligated to pay back that bond, right? And then that bond, should the developer ever sell that development, that commercial development, then would that bond then get carried on for the length of the bond?
I'll start and I'll let them deal with all the specifics. Your questions are all very good, and I'll try and remember them all. You talked about a developer doing a commercial piece, and my mind started doing about 9 different things. One of them was, you're right, if the developer came in and they set it up, if it was just one parcel, then there'd only be that one assessment. Now, it's possible that there could be splits and so forth, and maybe Michael can talk more about the legality of that and whether the debt can be split off if there are partial splits. The other part is that perhaps the developer comes in and he actually splits the property to start with. So he may have 5 or 6 parcels that he creates out of what was one parcel. And then if you do an assessment bond, you can put an assessment upon each piece within the property. So there would be an assessment on each of the 6 different pieces. And then that one assessment could be paid off while the other one continues to just do the annual payment on the assessment, whereas one could be fully paid. So it's possible that it could be broken up that way, is one thought that I have. If it's a general obligation debt as opposed to an assessment debt, then it will run with the land and it will run until the bond is fully paid off. I think, can I put you on the spot to talk about whether or not they can be split after they're formed? Good.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, they can be. They usually with taxes, they follow the tax parcel identification number. So That's how they would be. The taxes themselves would be reallocated, and how the tax bills are sent out. Assessments typically follow the same sort of program. That's just the easiest way to track them. One of the things I think it is important to remember is that both taxes and assessment are only recourse against the real estate. So it's what we call non-recourse against the person that's owning it. So any individual that owns a piece of property can always walk away and say, I'm not going to pay the taxes, just because they don't want to. One of the things that comes up in commercial development in the few that we've looked at is what you were describing, which is if you're doing geo bonds or assessment bonds, typically what happens is the landlord being the owner of the property, ends up having to pass those charges along in what's commonly called the CAM charges, so that the users of the property end up with a higher lease rate than they might have for a piece of property down the street. So the reason we haven't seen a lot of use of commercial community facilities districts is, at the end of the day, when developers look at them, they realize they're not going to be able to pass those charges along in the CAM charges and have competitive properties. So they decide to bear the cost up front. And back to the $50,000 example that I gave you, they just go ahead and bear the $50,000 up front and realize they're not going to be able to save that $5,000 with the community facilities district, because we've dealt with Walmart, for instance. So Walmart just flat out says we're not paying that. Even if they buy it from the developer, they won't. If they buy a parcel within a shopping center, they won't pay that. They want it paid off somehow.
And that's good. And he used CAM, and probably most of you know that that's common area maintenance. It's usually a charge that's added on to the residential. Sometimes it's called triple nets as well. So it's an additional charge that when somebody rents property, they'll add that on. The other point that he made is that it could be passed on by the developer to whoever rents the property, and that's one methodology that could be utilized. And because of the tax exempt rate, though, it might be possible for them to do it at a lower cost than what they would be looking at, especially if they needed to make 10 or 12% on their own money. If they could borrow it at 6%, it's possible that they could actually have their rent be lower because they don't have as much invested in the property on the front end, so they don't necessarily have to get as high a return. That's all the assumption that that the developer is going to make that separation in their mind, and that's not really for us to decide. I guess that's more for the developer to decide. But what we wanted to do was be able to provide another tool that the commercial entities could use should they decide to address.
May I?
Yes, sir.
I understand that this is a very lucrative financing method for developers. And the reason for that, isn't it true that whatever monies are borrowed, it doesn't appear on their financials, their balance sheet?
And I'll start, and they can correct me. As Michael mentioned before, it's an off-balance sheet financing, so they pretty much get to take it off of their whatever balance sheets they have for their entity, and they don't have to show that so much as a cost. So it truly does go immediately to the bottom line, because they don't have to show that debt there necessarily, because it goes with the property. So that is one way in which the developer can benefit. The other, as he mentioned, is when he said 8 or 9% cost for the developer to borrow. Some I've heard numbers as high as 12, 13, 14%. And if the tax exempt rate is right now in the 6s, they can save 6 or 7% on the cost of the borrowing, which is an extremely substantial number for a developer. The others are they don't have to put necessarily as much money up front in of their own.
I only have 2 more questions.
You certainly may.
That is a win for the developer. What's the win for the city?
I'll start again, but please come up. I know I'm not giving you any room, but just push me out of the way. I think the wins for the city are if it's something that the city desires. And I think that's the thing that we're trying to focus on with the new policy, with the policy amendments that we're bringing forward, which is if we're going to do a community facilities district in the city of Surprise, it should be for something that the city desires to see, not just because a developer wants one. And that's sort of the impetus behind some of the modifications to the policy that we're proposing. Is we think there should be some benefit to the city. It should be something that the city desires to a substantial enough amount that the city's willing to allow the residents of the city of Surprise or the businesses within the city of Surprise to be taxed at a higher rate than what the rest of the residents within the city of Surprise would be taxed at. Would any of you like to add to that?
Thank you, Robert. Just to back up a little bit and not to beat up the developers too badly, with respect to most community facilities districts in this day and age, what's happening is they're actually putting all the infrastructure into the ground first. So it's not an off-balance sheet financing. They're actually incurring the cost. They're putting cost into the ground, and then they're getting reimbursed over time. And from your perspective, that's good because they're dealing with all of the construction management and all the issues that go along with whether or not the cost is established as a maximum and whether or not it's finished on time and so on and so forth. And then you just issue bonds as assessed valuation grows, for example, in the Marley Park case. If it was an assessment bond, it's possible that the money is taken out up front. But if they were trying to do a construction CFD and borrow the money, GO bond is issued, they need to put up collateral or they need to put up a guarantee on it. And an off-balance sheet financing really isn't one where they put up collateral or they put a guarantee, because anymore a contingent liability would appear on their balance sheet.
My final answer has to do with that. Is the downside of this whole thing is, in a changing economic times as we are in at the present time, and the developer were not able to finish the project, what recourse is there back to the city, and how do the bondholders get paid back?
I think I'll let Michael answer that because he'll give you a better legal answer.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the legal answer, if you go to those blue books that your city attorney and I spend a lot of time in, is that the statutes clearly say that that any debt of a community facilities district is not a debt legally or economically or otherwise of the municipality that forms it. So that's one of the nice things that when the developers created this, they said, we're going to make sure the cities and towns aren't affected by that. That's all well and good, but as you can probably imagine, to the extent that you give birth to this brand new political subdivision and you let it go out and do these things, any smart plaintiff's lawyer, when the bonds don't get paid, is going to look around for a deep pocket, and one of the deep pockets they're going to look at is the city of Surprise. And more likely than not, everybody in this room, other than the audience, would get sued if bondholders didn't get paid on one of these bond issues. So we spend a lot of time making sure that the developers we get involved in that are going to use these things, that they have the wherewithal to do the projects they say they're going to do. Because at the end of the day, these bonds are what we call dirt bonds. Not because they're not worth dirt, but because the security is ultimately the dirt. At the end of the day, if you can't sell the real estate at a foreclosure sale, you're never going to be able to pay the debt off. And even if you can sell it, you're going to have to deal with bankruptcy, so you're going to have problems even when you go to sell it. So at the end of the day, the statute protects you, but we spend a lot of time building in other precautions that would take a lot more time than we have tonight to describe.
So you do the due diligence. You make sure the developer has the wherewithal in which to not leave the city hanging out.
We try. We work with staff. We have policies and procedures. We have application processes, and we spend a lot of time looking at these things. And you wouldn't do them with just anybody.
Do you do that due diligence each time you issue a bond?
Yes, we do.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Nellis, thank you for your time. Mr. Cafiso and Mr. Strickland, we appreciate it very much. I believe that concludes our workshop item, and so this meeting is adjourned. That's okay, man. I call this regular city council meeting to order. City clerk, may we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Truitt,
Here.
Vice Mayor Villanueva,
Here.
Councilmember Longabaugh,
Here.
Councilmember Alton,
Here.
Councilmember Williams,
Here.
Councilmember Foro, here. Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we move to the consent agenda, and I would like to pull two things off of consent. One would be number 5, and the other, number 17, has been withdrawn, so that'll be dealt with at a later date. Is there anything else council would like to see come off consent?
Actually, mine was number 6. It was number 5 also.
I'm sorry?
Mine was also 5.
Okay, great.
14.
Okay, 14. Anything else? Hearing nothing, may I have a motion and a second on the remaining consent?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Would you please cast your votes?
Just a minute. I got to figure this out.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Going to number 5, Councilwoman Foro.
Actually, my issue was strictly, I wanted to say I was very happy to see that the consent agenda actually brought in the liquor license issues instead of having it separate, so that we're not having to go through those one at a time and over again. Maybe you have something different related to this.
I do. As a trustee on West Valley board of the board of the West Valley Art Museum, I'm going to abstain from voting on this particular item.
Okay.
Are there any other comments on item number 5? Motion.
Move to approve liquor license application request for a cafe on the avenue.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
6 yes vote, 1 abstained.
Thank you
Truitt?
very much. Mr. Williams, item number 14.
Number 14, I just had a quick question, and maybe Mr. Shaw can answer this for me. With the Heritage Fund, if we apply for this, and I know it's just about an application right now, but if we apply and we get approved, does that save money towards what was supposed to originally go to that? And then my second part of that question was, does this impact any other applications we might have in the future to put other parks in and around the city?
Mayor Trude, Councilmember Williams, the intent behind the grant is to offset the capital costs for the project. So we're looking to leverage the funds that we have in the CIP currently. So it is looking to save us money for the current project. Secondly, with the impact of future projects, we've had a good relationship with the state parks program. We've applied in the past. We don't have any other current projects into consideration, but that doesn't mean that we can't get future grants if we apply and get this grant.
Mr. Shaw, will it delay the park in any way?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
I move to approve resolution 08-36.
Second.
Motion and second. Please cast your vote.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you. As I mentioned, 17 has been withdrawn, and therefore we go to current events by mayor and council. We'll start with Mr. Williams.
Current events. I attended my first Westmark Educational Committee meeting yesterday. It's a board of passionate individuals in regards to education in the West Valley. Discussions were on alternatives to public funding for public education, which is near and dear to my heart. And it was a great discussion. Look forward to future meetings. I'm continuing those meetings with the residents, coffee talk, as I've called it. We'll be meeting this Saturday. Again, we'll have updates on what's going on in the community, and I encourage residents to come out, ask questions, and get involved. share their vision, share their opinion of the community, and get to know what's going on. The whole point of me doing this is because I live that daily grind, that 9-to-5 job. Not everybody can come down to the council meetings. Not everybody has Cox Cable and can watch these meetings, and not everyone knows what's going on a daily basis. This gives the typical resident opportunity to do that. So I encourage you to take advantage of that and come on down and talk to me. And finally, a lot of the communications I've had with residents have been in regards to vandalism, traffic concerns, safety concerns, and in talking to many of the staff, especially Chief Hughes, really encouraging neighborhood watch programs. And it's something that's put in place right now, and I encourage you to get out, knock on your neighbor's door, and get involved in just your block alone, and it makes a big difference on what's going to be going on in your neighborhood. You know the kids in the neighborhood, you know the people that live there. It's going to have a major impact, and I really encourage that with the residents, and I'll be pushing that and in future HOA meetings and such. So that's it.
Thank you, Councilwoman Foro.
Okay, just a couple of items here. As usual, the identity theft issues that always concern me. There is an identity theft prevention class February 28th at the Hollyhock location for the Community Initiatives Building. For those people who have not been through one of those courses, you should actually do that, and it is free. So please contact them and attend. The other issue was, it looks like Tuesday, February 5th, the House Bill 2485, which is HB 2485, goes to the state legislature. And this bill was interesting because it was I think a great measure in order to help reduce the animal overpopulation by actually giving some teeth to enforcing some laws related to the sale of animals on public property or private property. And in particular, I won't go through all of the details of what it does not apply to as much as what it does apply to. And the statute 132914, unlawful public sale of animals classification definition. A person commits an unlawful public sale of animals by knowingly offering an animal for sale on any public highway, street, park, or any public property adjacent to a public highway, street, or park, and any commercial private property without express consent of the owner and lessee of the property for the sale of animals. Because we do have an issue consistently, it seems like all the time, over at the Home Depot and Walmart locations, as well as some other locations, and it's another way of trying to curb that. The final thing I had was, as a number of people know, and it's been on the Channel 11 website as well as on Channel 11, I had scheduled a meeting with Sun Village on February 18th. This has been canceled by their HOA attorney, with the concern of it being a political issue. As everyone got a flyer from me, the coffee and donuts were clearly not a political issue. So my apologies to those individuals. I've already had a meeting with Calceda residents, which was very successful, definitely not political. And my issue now is that because of the meeting being canceled, if you would like to contact me for questions and answers or suggestions related to District 6, as well as in Surprise at Large, don't let this stop you, and feel free to contact me. We managed to get your sidewalk put in and moving the traffic light box back. I'm sure there are other things that are of concern and that we can address them accordingly. So that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I want to start out by saying Mayor Truitt, myself, Councilmember Alton, and Councilmember Williams had the delightful treat of going to the groundbreaking of Surprise Point Phase 2. Phase 1 is the what everybody sees, the crane building the cement walls over there, and the construction on Surprise's first movie theater, which is very exciting. And along with that movie theater, there are going to be several restaurants, a day spa, and family entertainment venues coming to the Phase 2, which will be similar to Jillian's. It's a video, family entertainment, bowling type of thing, and type of venue. So it's really going to be truly good for the city of Surprise and the citizens finally to have a movie theater and some sort of family entertainment that we can go to. And I thank all the developers and the council members that went. And secondly, Ken Lynch, he's producing some shows for the council members. I think Mr. Williams has already produced one. I did one, and I interviewed Mr. Bob Beckley of Public Works and Janine Yurkovic of Economic Development. So I'd like to thank them for participating. It's really gives you a personal insight into your council members, and I hope that citizens feel free to email me or call me and leave messages for future subjects or points of interest that they'd like to see me address or any of the other council members address. So thank you, Ken, and thank you, citizens. Please input. I want your input. Lastly, it's Valentine's Day, so I'd be remiss in saying hi to Yuka, my girlfriend at home. She's sick, and I'm sorry I'm here, but she's very understanding, and I love you, and thank you for understanding, and I'll be home soon after this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Longabank.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to say that I had the honor to attend a police promotional ceremony along with Councilmember Alton and the mayor, in which the police department promoted John Portee to assistant chief last Monday. And it was really great to see an active department, having people move up in the department into a higher level. And it was good that we were there. I think it's my understanding that council didn't attend these things in the past, and so it's good that we're showing that we're a different council. We're involved in our staff's activities when they invite us. Secondly, I attended a meeting with the fire department on Wednesday, and the details I'm going to talk about in next session because I'm going to get some data. But initially, I wanted to let you know that we do have an ongoing program that I sponsored with council contingency money last fall in October, and we have bought at least 100 fire smoke alarms for homes throughout the city where people did not have them or could not afford them. And if any of you out there in TV land or on the computer know of this and feel that you need one and don't have one, please contact the fire department. I don't want to see anyone feel that due to cost that they're not safe in their homes. It is just too important a thing not to have that. And be watching on Channel 11 pretty soon. We're going to be videoing our interview next week, the chief of fire and I talking about this program a little bit more. And lastly, I'd like to let you know that my sources in the police department have told me that the truck that we're working on is almost ready for unveiling, and we'll be probably showing that off pretty soon. So that's just about ready to go, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Alton?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick things. Just want to let everybody know that I am the third person to start their own blog on the city website. It's under Richard's Notes. Councilman Longabaugh has got that, as well as the mayor. What a great feeling that is, to be able to just communicate. I wish it was back and forth, but to communicate and share what's going on inside of me, as well as what I have been doing for you. So stay tuned, and that will be changed, or that will be added to on a weekly basis. I had the opportunity, I believe I received an appointment from Westmark, the Enterprise Zone Committee or Commission, and what that does is look at the western part of the valley and new businesses that are coming in, and to allow us an opportunity in which to request that they come to Surprise, and that is my goal. I think I have been helpful in the Quiet Zone initiative. Not everybody knows about it, but the Quiet Zone was a committee was put together and financed individually without any city funds of some people from Sun City Grand and I believe Sun City West. It has to do with a quiet zone, I believe it's from 10 o'clock at night until 5 o'clock in the morning, where the horns of the trains don't whistle. And they have been working with BNSF, and it's my understanding through a series of communications that I made and I received that it has been approved by BNSF. The date of it coming to fruition is another story. So we have to continue and to watch for that. I have opened up dialogue with Sun City Grand and met with a large number of folks to answer any questions they may have, as well as give them my agenda and what I have been working on, and try to dispel any rumors that get started that are not factual. And it's an opportunity to have a two-way communication, and I look forward to doing that again. Also, I've opened up some communication opportunities with Bell West Ranch Homeowners Association, and I hope to attend their meeting in a short period of time. Mayor Truitt and I met with the State Attorney General, Terry Goddard, this week. Had a good dialogue with him. We shared our concerns. He shared his concerns. I can say, because I've heard this from the governor's offices, that they are very, very excited about Surprise. They're anticipating that we're going to move ahead and be a model city for the rest of Arizona and the rest of the western United States. And we do have a lot to offer, and this is our opportunity now to go forward and bring that about. So, and that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor Villanueva.
Yes, quick report. The mayor and I took a tour of interfaith communities a couple of weeks ago, and it was really something to go over and see the programs that they do have at the facility. Also, then we took a tour of the new facility that's going on Greenway right behind Rio Salado. The new home care facility they're putting up, cafeteria, and also they're working with Rio Salado and the city of Surprise, and they had nothing but good things to say about the city staff working with them. So we're looking forward to continue to working with them. And also, their clients, about 75% are from the city of Surprise, so it's something that we really have to take pride with. And also I'd like to thank staff for bringing me up to date on things that are happening in the city since January. And again, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Quite a bit of activity. My excitement for the week happened last Friday night, when, at the invitation of the governor and Mayor Phil Gordon of Phoenix, Economic Development Manager Janine Yurkovich and I attended a reception for His Highness Prince Andrew, Duke of York. It was a pretty high-powered group of people there. We were pleased to know quite a few of them, and then to be introduced to several more. So that was a special treat. I believe that concludes our reports. Good job, everyone. Thank you very much. We'll move to the call to the public. Mrs. Aguilar.
Yes, the first person will be Mike Woodard.
Mike Woodard, Mayor Truitt, Council. I'm here because have worked previously. I've spoken previously on something that's occurred, and that's the mileage reimbursement. I saw the article in the paper. That was not the intent of the citizens when we brought that petition forward last April. I do not believe it was the intent of the council to allow those forms to be filled out in the fashion that they were. I don't believe it's the intent of the taxpayers to pay for someone to drive to work and back to work. I was never paid to drive to work and back to work, no matter what I had to do after work. And I would like to ask this council to review those things and put some restrictions in place so that doesn't reoccur. Mr. Lynch said that one of the reasons these things occur is because the council doesn't report to or be under the jurisdiction of the city manager, and I agree with that. But you do report to and you are under the citizens of this city. If you look at your organizational chart, I believe you'll see that at the top are the citizens. I can't speak for every citizen. I can speak for myself. And I know there are others that join with me, or we wouldn't have had this referendum or whatever petition last April that was approved. So I would just ask this council to instruct the staff on how these forms should be filled out, and if they're not filled out that way, they're not done properly, that they be returned until they are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person would be Ken Wright.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I want to talk on the same subject. I was one of those people that stood out in the sun on several days to get names on those petitions on the auto mileage situation. And I think that what I'd like to ask tonight is a very simple thing. And I noticed while Mike Woodard was talking, we had 4 exchanges of notes over on the right side of the podium while Mr. Woodard was talking. I think that's pretty bad. I would hope that that discontinues. Have another one, please. The situation is such that we have non-standardized reporting. We went through this once before with the way that council members, the ex-council, were required to prove their driver's license validity. Now apparently we have a situation where a standard form can be filled out one way, and someone that receives taxpayer dollars for use of that form can be compensated, and yet it can be filled out another way and still compensated. I believe that this type of thing, the expenditure of city funds, was touched upon by Mr. Alton in a much earlier meeting. Mr. Alton received no traction from the rest of the council members as he attempted to try to bring some reason to the methods in which taxpayer money is spent. I would plead tonight that we go through all of these things where city funds are spent, come back here in a cohesive manner, let's spell things out. In regard to the instant situation with the councilman or councilwoman, I would ask you, as one of the options you have to respond to speakers, that you refer to that expenditure to the city attorney. I said in this meeting before, refer it to for validity. I said in the meeting before when Councilman Johnson commented that about having to drive to work and then back to work. I think that's a horse of a different color. And he indicated that he had checked that out with the city attorney. So please, let's look at all these expenditures. Let's stop the game playing that goes on. I thought it was going to be stopped. And let's get it stopped so that we don't have these types of things occurring. Please. Thank you.
Next person is Andrea Anderson.
I'm Andrea Anderson. I live in Ashton Ranch. I was just concerned about the tennis courts. I just found out that the plan was to take them down, the 2 free ones, by the volleyball and basketball courts. I think it's a bad habit to start taking out new structures because the land cost might. I was informed that it's cheaper to build on land we already own as a city instead of buying new land. I use those tennis courts all the time, and they're always busy. The area is developed very well, and we like it. We like it the way it is. It has a lot of possibilities. It has nice hours. You can play at 5:30 when the sun comes up and all summer long. It's accessible to children that don't have to have non-marking shoes to play at the new tennis facility. I just found out about this 2 days ago, so I put together an informal petition and got 38 signatures. Only 2 people were wanting the skate park. The other 38 said, absolutely not. We don't want it here, and we like the tennis courts where they are. We're happy with the area the way it is. And that was in an hour and a half at the park today with me and one other lady. So I just wanted to know what I would need to do next and who to meet with, and The other concern was that it's accessible to the police to monitor the skate park right there. But right on the other side of Dreamcatcher Stadium is, I don't know what's planned for that lot, but the police drive right by the whole road. So, 200 feet over is still a good location. I guess that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is it for call to the public.
Thank you. I close the call to the public, and now we go to the staff report, city manager and staff reports.
That we're of the upcoming retreat by council, the February 23rd and 24th at Rio Salada College. And so you can put that on your calendar. I'm going to do a quick report for the community development, maybe. We have the completed projects as of December. We have the Foxfire Professional Warehouse, American General Financial, Amu Bouche, which is a gourmet catering and carryout, Buffalo Wild Wings Bar and Grill, the Golden Wee Chinese Cuisine, Mother Hubbard's Clothing Cupboard, Board Shack, medical office on Mountain View.
Sorry, your time is up.
Tasha's Roast has finally opened. Urgent Care is completed. The Valley Kidney Center, Fuzzy Sports Grill. And so we completed through December 30th, 149 permits, 123 were single family and 25 were commercial. And our new projects as of January, which have come in, is Waddell Town Center. That's a retail project of 10 acres off of Reams and Waddell. The La Entrada apartment site plan, which is 28 acres on Pinnacle Peak Road and Tillman Boulevard. Mountain View Apartments, which is 16 acres off of Grand near Reams. The Skyway Industrial Site Plan, which is 11 acres off of Dysart Road. The Circle K came in with a site plan off of Bell Road in Saraville. That's 2 acres. Walgreens has a site plan of 2 acres off of Litchfield Road in Waddell. This is a site plan for retail pads, which is off of Greenway and Reams, which is 1.5 acres. Grand Avenue and 193rd is a request to rezone to commercial off Grand and 193rd. Cotton Lane and Waddell is another rezone of to commercial, and Cotton Lane and Waddell Road rezoning is another commercial with a major plan amendment request for mixed use on Cotton Lane and Waddell. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Acting City Manager Kathy Rice.
Thank you.
Council, at this time I need a motion to adjourn the council meeting so that we can convene the Board of Adjustments. May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any nays? Okay. The council meeting is adjourned, and I now convene the Board of Adjustments, and this will be for items 18, 19, and 20.
Okay.
City Clerk.
Consideration and action on the Board of Adjustment meeting minutes of January 24th, 2008.
Jump on in.
I can do it.
Need an action, please?
Move to approve
the
adjourn.
minutes.
Approve the minute.
The Board of Adjustments of January 24th, 2008.
Second.
We got a motion in 3 seconds. Please cast your vote.
I don't know who to choose.
Just a minute, I gotta find it.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you. Item number 19, please.
Consideration and action to adjourn the Board of Adjustment and reconvene the regular City Council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you. And number 20.
Number 21, a report and presentation on the status of the fiscal year 2009 budget process.
Wait a minute.
Number 20, I believe.
We did 20.
We just did that one, I'm sorry.
We reconvened.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did I miss one? Because I thought we did 18, 19, and 20.
Actually, the first one was to adjourn the meeting and convene the Board of Adjustment.
Oh, okay. My mistake.
That's okay. Report and presentation on the status of the fiscal year 2009 budget process.
Okay, just a minute. Let's see here.
Mayor and council, based upon your last vote, you have adjourned the Board of Adjustment and have reconvened as back in the city council meeting, and this would be item number 21.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your help. Mr. Schrock, how are you?
Thank you, sir. Good evening. Tonight is the presentation on the fiscal year 2009 budget and where we're at in the process. At the last presentation that I made to you a couple weeks ago, we talked about some of the financial outlooks for this next fiscal year 2009 and how it might impact what we're doing in the budget process. Tonight is a little bit more detailed. We want to build upon what we talked to you last meeting, and start off with, we're going to talk about the ongoing general fund outlook. Again, what is the general fund? That is what we run on. That's the bread and butter for the city. That's what pays the police officers, the firefighters, the employees of the Public Works Department, and others to that effect. Over 621 employees are paid out of the general fund. So again, it's our largest operating fund. It does subsidize some of our other activities, such as campus operations, transit, and the 10% set aside to the tune of about $4.1 million. Again, this is a look at our resources. In the previous presentation, talked about how the intergovernmental and the local sales tax is where we see most of our revenues for the city and what we pay for our day-to-day operations. Again, that intergovernmental is state-shared income tax, state-shared sales tax. And again, we want to make sure that we stress that ongoing revenues are used for ongoing expenditures. One-time resources are used for one-time expenditures. And again, we do account for operating transfers in. That would be our indirect cost study, where the utility funds pay the general fund for the services that we provide, like IT support, some of the budgeting support services, and things to that effect. So again, the base budget, what we do is we have a base budget when we take a look at how we're going to divvy up the funds each year, or the available funds. What we have is a base budget, so it's a continuation of the ongoing expenditures from the prior fiscal year. This has a set amount, so we'll take the current fiscal year 08 and we'll carry that forward to fiscal year 09 as a set amount. That doesn't mean that it's going to stay at that level, because during the budget process we'll evaluate whether programs continue or there might be some changes in priorities from council or from management. But again, it sets that level at a previous fiscal year. What's included, again, are any increases in employee salaries, insurance, and pensions. It doesn't account for increases in fuel or cost, anything that might have utilities to that, anything to that effect. And again, we do take into account the operating transfers out, so things to continue the operations of the campus, transit, and the 10% set aside, as I mentioned in the first slide. So this is the outlook. We're projecting to have $84.2 million in resources, and our base budget, as it stands right now, would leave us, if we were to take that into account, $1.1 million for new activities, programs, and services. Again, that's an initial look. When we first started the kickoff for the budget a few months ago, we were projecting about 2.5. So you can see that numbers continue to shrink based on the collections that we've seen in the local sales tax. Again, that's something that we're going to monitor as we continue through the tentative budget adoption. So what we do is we get the supplements from the departments. February 4th, all the departments that were to have everything completed and to us. That means the database closes and we can start crunching the numbers. The supplements are anything that would be above and beyond the base budget. So any increases to service, again, any increases to the utilities, fuel, things like that. We had $14 million in requests from the departments. That's a substantial amount of money. And that means that we've got to get to work and whittle that number down. And that's why we work with the departments to sort their priorities. They set that. Then we start meeting with management, and ultimately we'll meet with the council and talk about those. Some of the things that are notable in those requests are the new facilities, such as City Hall. We're estimating for a half a year to operate the new City Hall, it's going to be about $600,000. So keep in mind that we had that $1.1 million, $600,000 to operate the City Hall for half a year. But again, that's why we've got to be creative, and that's what we get paid to figure out how we're going to fund that. Again, positions requested were about nearly 100. So the bottom line, if we were to take our resources, the base budget, and then the requests that were made, we'd have a $12.9 million deficit. Obviously, that's not what we're going to do. We have a job to present the state with a balanced budget and the council with a balanced budget, and that's what we're going to work on over the next few months. Also tonight, we're going to talk about the enterprise funds. We've talked about this briefly during the council briefings. Enterprise fund, what are they? They're the sanitation, sewer, water, and replenishment. Again, these are the funds that are run like a business, so they're not going to gain a profit. Their uses are definitely restricted to their business activities, and their revenues are derived from service fees that are paid by the ratepayers. Again, as I mentioned, the resources are from the service fees, and again, we use the same concept with the base budget for the enterprise funds as we do for the general fund. What we also take into account during the base budget process, though, is depreciation, so that we're looking to make sure that we have enough money to replace infrastructure that might be outdated or need replacement. And again, we also take into account the transfers out, as I mentioned, the indirect costs, and we have the vehicle replacement. So for the enterprise funds, it looks a little different. We have $2.8 million available based on our revenue projections right now with 0 rate increases. The supplements, again, same thing, above and beyond what their base were. We had $2.7 million from the enterprise funds requested. Again, some of the notable items are there on your screen. You can see that one of the bigger ones is the water operations. Bringing that in-house has led to the departments requesting about 21 employees to do that. Again, that's something we'll look at. We'll have to take a look at growth and see how and if those numbers need to be adjusted with the departments during the budget process. So the bottom line for enterprise funds is if we were to approve everything, which doesn't, because there are funds available, that doesn't mean we are going to approve everything. Again, these items are paid for by the ratepayers, and it's our duty to make sure that we do what's best for them in the long run. The budget calendar, I'm putting this up there. There's a lot of dates. I've put a couple items in bold, and I'm circling one. That's the council and staff retreat. That's coming up on the 23rd and 24th of this month. And I'm going to jump down to 4/18 of 2008, which is our budget retreat. There's plenty of time to hear the council based on what you guys discuss at the meeting and the retreat, and take into account any changes in priorities, or if there's something that management, you come to a conclusion that we need to be doing and make a priority, we certainly have plenty of time to make those adjustments. So I want to make sure that you know that. And again, we're going to come to you basically every meeting to talk about budget. So you'll get to see me every meeting. So that's my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? Just a comment. Great report. Great job. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Yes, every meeting.
This does require that we take action.
This one is no action, it's just a report.
I'm reading approve here.
Except you're doing
No action necessary, right? Staff report?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Then we move on to item number 22.
Consideration and action on the purchase of no office furniture through corporate interior systems on the U.S. Communities contract for City Hall in amount not to exceed $4,069,773.21.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. The purchase before you includes all furniture for the new City Hall. This includes all the workstation cubicles, filing, freestanding furniture for City Hall, the freestanding furniture filing cabinets, as well as the high-density filing cabinets that we have required for the new building. In addition, space planning and also installation of all furniture is included by the vendor. The process that was used to make this recommendation included first an evaluation of all furniture vendors by design consultants and also the city team, the design team. You know, through that process, each company was examined to see what their materials were and how well it fit into the space requirements that we had for the new City Hall. At the conclusion of that process, Knoll Furniture was selected for a couple of reasons. One, it's a very high quality type of furniture, very durable, and it fit with the space planning and also with the aesthetics of the interior finishes of the facility. It came highly recommended by the design professionals. Finally, after the selection was made to recommend that type of furniture, we went through an examination of available bidding alliances that are available, pricing that we could piggyback on. And we were aware that there is a national pricing structure that has been used by the U.S. communities, a government purchasing alliance. And what that involves is a member community goes through the actual bidding process, comes back with hard bids, if you will, and makes a recommendation for the most competitive company, and Knoll is selected through that process. That process allows us to use that pricing, and then further we see reductions as a result of our size of purchase, as well as the quantity that quantity and also the timing in which the purchases are made. As a result, the recommendation that came from Public Works Project Management and as well purchasing is to purchase this through that pricing structure. I think I'll stop there and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Through your chair.
Mr. Alton.
What is the life of this furniture? What are you forecasting? 10 years, 5 years, 6, 7?
Typically, it's longer than that. We're looking at, usually you get into a 20-year life. And one of the features of this furniture is that over that period of time, various replacements will occur, and also there'll be mixes and matches. So to get that kind of longevity, it will require this type of furniture. So I will ask the company's rep to validate that, but that's the typical practice.
Is there a warranty on this, Mr. Beckman?
Yes.
How long is the warranty?
Let me ask. Lifetime warranty.
Okay. We're looking to purchase this outright.
Yes.
Has leasing ever been discussed?
Pardon me?
Leasing the furniture?
No, we have not.
That was never brought up, never discussed, never as an alternative.
Not for this type of not for this type of purchase. We haven't considered leasing in the past.
Okay.
Councilwoman Forrell.
Typically, having dealt with this furniture issue before with Phoenix Police on a large scale also, leasing is not cost effective. Outright buying and long term, particularly with a lifetime warranty, is amazing. I think ours is about 10 years, but you get what you pay for. When will the chairs and items get delivered then? In 2009?
That's correct. It's roughly an eight month delivery period.
Can we get at least 10 early, since these are falling apart up here? And I broke Mr. Alton's chair over there. His wheel popped off. And Kathy Rice's chair has got an arm that's falling down, and it's taped with masking tape or duct tape or something.
I think that we can work that out.
Thank you.
The chair. Just to reiterate and back up a little, Bob, so I understand and everyone understands, there was a bidding process for this.
The pricing that we're utilizing came through a bid. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, may I have an action, please?
Move to approve consideration and action for the purchase of Knoll office furniture through Corporate Interior Systems on the U.S. Communities contract, RQ, so on and so forth. Sherry, you got all that?
Got it.
In the amount not to exceed $4 million. What is that? $69,773.21, and that including sales tax with a $55,000 owner's contingency.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, please cast your vote.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you. Item number 23.
Reconsideration and action to relocate Surprise Farms pickleball courts to the Surprise Tennis and Racket Complex.
Thank you very much. Mr. Coronado, are you presenting on this?
Mayor, members of the council, Ms. Rice, we're here tonight on the request by Councilman Johnson to bring this back for a reconsideration, to relocate back to the Surprise Tennis Complex. The request is on the table. What we're asking tonight is direction from council to give staff the opportunity to go back and identify if there are any additional costs. Be apprised that there is approximately $400,000 of the Surprise Farms Community Park project that is allocated to pickleball courts. So there is money available. We don't know today what the dynamics of that budget would be, so that's what we're asking tonight. We're asking for the opportunity to actually work with project management, Mr. Beckley and Terry Lowe, to come back to you at a later date with a construction contract, with any additional associated transfers that might be required. And tonight is basically coming back at the request of Councilman Johnson to relocate these facilities.
Thank you very much. Comments?
Yes, well, I said it bounced back and forth more times than a pickleball or a tennis ball, so here we are. And I was, I've been pretty verbal about the location of these and the influence of the sound issue on the two sports. I've had a lot of meetings with staff and a lot of meetings with the USAPA Association and their presidents and their representatives. And in my opinion, we can make it work and we should make it work, but with the stipulation that we have some sort of sound deflection or sound mitigation device between the courts, the two different courts. Doesn't have to be on all sides, just in between the courts. And I think that would I don't think that would detract from what is there currently with the tennis facility. They do want to be a part of that excitement because it is getting some momentum, and it's nice to be around just a thriving recreational facility, and I think that's what they want. I think they deserve that, but I don't think it should jeopardize what's there, and I think we can do it with that stipulation, and I feel confident that you can work that out, Mark, and figure out what we need to do in that direction. So with that said, I think it's a workable situation, and I think it's a win-win situation. They can add to the complex and add a value to it, and I think we should go ahead and direct staff to look at that.
Through you, Chair.
Mr. Williams.
Go ahead.
No.
Age before beauty. Sure. Okay. Just one question, Mark, and I'm supportive of this. But that said, Surprise Farms 2 and Surprise Farms residents need to be ensured that this will not delay the progress of Surprise Farms Park.
Boy, you and I are on the same page there. Sir, I can guarantee you after talking with Mr. Beckley, this will not detour. This will not take that project and delay it in any way. Actually, where we have programmed the pickleball courts, it'll be progressively programmed as a pad, landscape, future opportunities. You heard a young mother here this afternoon talk about tennis courts with no charges. So we'll work with project management. We have a great relationship, and we'll make it very progressive and assure the residents that Phase 1 of Surprise Farms will not be delayed.
Thank you.
Mr. Alton?
Through you, Chair. Mr. Coronado, the pickleballers will have the same rights as tennis ball players, meaning that they will be able to use the restrooms that are at the facility, at the site. They'll be able to use the common areas and all common areas that is currently in place for the tennis.
With all due respect, except Norm Davis, okay? Norm will have to come to the rec office and talk to me.
It will be of equal status.
Absolutely, and this is one of the positive parts. I didn't want to come up here and cheerlead tonight, but the positive part and the positive dynamic of this relocation is that the pickleball community can utilize the dynamics in all the infrastructure that's there. And the parking, the clubhouse, all the things that right now that USTA, the United States Tennis Association, is saying is one of the best facilities in America. So that's one of the motivations for Mr. Davis and his group. And you're absolutely right; they will be treated as equals. I want to make it really clear: to the council and to those in the pickleball community and tennis community, and something that Councilman Johnson has been very sensitive about. This will be as we manage all facilities, we'll have to have both groups work together to maximize the facility in the best interest of Surprise, whether it's recreation, economics, all the things will come together, but we have the assurance of both groups that we can make it work, and I'm pretty positive that we can.
Great. I think it's a great project, and utilizing the infrastructure that we currently have in place and be able to use that by the pickleballers, it just makes sense, whereas Surprise Farms probably didn't.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Foro?
Thank you. I think next time you got to give us a little bigger map here and maybe something colored, because I can't tell, even with the bifocal on, what is pickleball, because it's not identified, and what is tennis on here. And so this is not, I mean, how many courts are being converted? Are courts being converted? How is this broken down? I can't tell on this little teeny tiny map.
Mayor and Councilman Referral, there will be additional 12 courts, and it'll be to the southwest of the facility. We already actually have them programmed. Initially, when we designed the facility, we had pickleball courts programmed. It will not impact or put any type of mitigating negative scenario for tennis. So I hear that loud and clear, and I'll take that and I'll bring it to you next time with a bigger picture.
Please.
Mr. Johnson.
Through the chair, one more comment. And maybe Mr. Alton will be glad to hear this. I don't want them moving to a facility and anybody having second choice or second rate. I agree with that. That's why right now, they had agreed not to play during certain tournaments and not to play if there were matches. And my feeling was they shouldn't have to do that. My feeling was that they should be able to play when they wanted to play, and tennis matches should be able to go on. So that's why I say if we can get a sound attenuation device there, they can play when they want, and tennis can play when they want, and nobody's second rate and has to sacrifice times. So I think that would be, that's a point well taken, and that's why I think this is a good idea.
One more.
Councilwoman Foro.
Thank you. When you come back with that information, find out if the sound barrier is actually being used someplace and how effective it is under the same circumstances that there's a tennis facility and a pickleball facility right next to each other, and truly how muffled is this sound from the tennis people or the pickleball people to the tennis people.
Mayor and Councilmember Foro, that might be a challenge. I'm not sure there's any facility in the country that has tennis and pickleball together. Now, Norm might correct me as I walk out in the lobby. But
he's saying yes, they do, and get with him.
Well, the Sun City Grand facility is not a good example.
No, that's
the
not a good
noise is the problem there. And but point well taken, and we'll do our best to make sure we bring back some options and some scenarios that have worked. Yes, ma'am.
Because I know that you have the walls on the freeways that are supposed to be sound
Absolutely.
barriers, and
Absolutely.
It bounces over and still affects them. It's slightly muffled, but nothing seriously muffled.
One of the positive things about the way projects work now in the Parks and Rec Department is the ability to work with a gentleman like Mr. Beckley, who has tremendous experience, and I'm sure that tomorrow we'll go and talk to him, and he'll probably have an idea by 8:30 on how we can come back and assure you that it's worked someplace else with respect to sound.
Okay.
And we'll make that assurance to you. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'd like to, first of all, congratulate Councilman Johnson on being so diligent in working with the public and coming to a reasonable solution. Congratulations, sir. Great job.
Thank you, Mayor.
And as an aside, this weekend, the Senior Olympics is taking place in Arizona Traditions. My understanding is they'll have over 250 players in this tournament, some coming from as far away as Canada. And so it's good to hear that we've got the Holiday Express open and ready to receive those people. We've got restaurants that are ready to feed them. And with this additional pickleball facility, we look forward to a lot of good things for our future. So thank you, sir.
Yes, Mayor.
Having heard that, I ask, do we have somebody that wants to speak? Okay.
Mr. Norm Davis.
I really don't have any issues right now. other than to say, obviously I agree this is a great thing for our sport. I think it's a great thing for our city. But mainly what I'd like to do now is, it's been a long 2.5 years to get to this point, and a lot of work by a lot of people. I'd like to thank Mayor Truitt for supporting and hearing us through a little bit. I would really like to thank Joe, who's had a lot of questions to deal with on the subject, and we've had some good discussions, and I think we've kind of accommodated one another and convinced that we can make it work. He's not here now, but I would like to thank Jim Peltis too for taking his time to help us. And more than anything else, I guess I would like to thank my hero, Mark Coronado, even though I don't get to use the bathroom. Without Mark's help and support and his trust over the last couple of 3 years, I don't think we could be close to this point. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
That is it.
Hearing no one, may I have a motion, please?
I move to direct staff to relocate the 12 Surprise Farms pickleball courts to the Surprise Tennis and Racket Complex as shown in the attached site layout.
Can I add, Councilmember Alton, with the stipulation that the design concept will include a sound attenuation or sound barrier between the two?
That
Thank you.
acceptable? Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
They
Is there any
men-
further
excuse me,
discussion?
Mayor, they mentioned cost. Will that come back to us before they relocate this?
Mayor and Councilman, Vice Mayor Villanueva, yes. Mr. Beckley will come back to you at a later date with a construction contract and all the details on what it will cost to construct a barrier and to relocate. And as I spoke before, we have some money in the Surprise Farmers budget. We'll transfer that over, but we anticipate there will be an increase, just to be clear.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, please cast your vote.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you. We're moving on to item number 24, and staff has asked that this item be withdrawn. There's a few issues that are yet to be worked out on item number 24, so we'll move directly to number 25. Was there somebody wishing
Yes,
to speak
there
on
was.
24?
Yes.
Okay, then let's go ahead and allow them to speak, and then we can move to 25.
Larry Thomas.
Mayor and Council, if I may, by having public comment on this item, you are bringing the item to the floor. Therefore, if you then decide to continue it, I will need to have a motion to continue. Otherwise, if you're not going to continue it, we will be noticing it appropriately at another meeting, and you would have the opportunity to speak at that time. Otherwise, if you do want to take the public comment, we would need just a motion.
Okay, yes, I'm going to take the public comment, and then we will ask for a motion to continue after the comment.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm Larry Thomas. I formerly worked for the City of Surprise. I'm a resident of the city. When I was working for the city, I worked in the Water Services Department. My concern is relating to the arsenic treatment facility that the city is going to spend approximately $4 million on. And I'm concerned about the potential for wasting of city funds. There are a couple of technical things that I think need to be looked at when you read the contract that are being provided in this arsenic treatment facility. Arsenic treatment, as you all know, is mandated by federal law. There's a new standard where you have to provide drinking water that's below 10 parts per billion concentration of arsenic. So this new system that is going to be constructed up in the Desert Oasis area has some things that concern me. One is there is a sodium hypochlorite injection system. I'm not certain that this is a necessary expenditure. Typically, the sodium hypochlorite systems are used for treating a particular form of arsenic. It's called arsenite. And my experience is that in the groundwater in this valley, there is not very much arsenite to be treated. So unless if there is a massive amount of arsenite at this location, this sodium hypochlorite injection system is unnecessary and it would be a waste of city funds. There is also a provision with the new plant for pH adjustment. There are provisions for hydrochloric acid and sodium hydroxide injection. Once again, what is the rationale for this? I don't believe that it's going to provide any helpful or any other kinds of benefits for the city or the residents who are being supplied that drinking water. Basically, you use pH adjustment if there's a problem with the water and you have to correct the pH so that you don't have corrosion of city pipes or other infrastructure. That's generally what pH adjustment is for. Our water in this area doesn't require that kind of pH adjustment. So that would be an unnecessary expense in this $4 million plant. There's another thing, and that is when I read about this system, it's supposed to... Go
ahead, one more minute.
Oh, it's supposed to treat... there's a city limit of 7 parts per billion. The federal law says the limit is 10. If you lower the limit to 7, there's no scientific analysis that will show you that going down to 7 is going to provide any kind of healthful benefits for the residents. However, it will provide a greater cost. The people who operate that plant are going to have to try to operate it well below 7 to avoid going over that 7 part per limit that's been set by 7 parts per billion that's been set by the city. So once again, I question that. So anyhow, I would like the city to look into these things before signing a contract to build this kind of a system. Basically, the technology is sound. It's a proven technology, but it's got a lot of bells and whistles that I'm not sure the city should be paying for.
Thank you very much. And that's precisely why I allowed the call to the public here, is that staff can take direction and look into these issues, and hopefully we will be prepared to address them. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we need a date specific, or can we continue this?
Mayor and Council, if you'd consider it or move to consider it 60 days out, we'd appreciate that. And if we have it prepared before then, we'll bring it before then.
Okay, great. I'll entertain a motion to continue up to 60 days or sooner if we're ready.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please cast your vote.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Item number 25.
Consideration and action to authorize the Human Resources Department to engage the services of CPS Executive Search to assist with the nationwide search for the position of city manager in an amount not to exceed $25,000 and authorizing required budget transfers.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Bowers.
Thank you, Mayor Truitt, members of council. Thank you very much. The piece of legislation before you will authorize the Human Resources Department to enter into a contract to engage the services of CPS Executive Search to assist the department with the nationwide search for the position of city manager, and in an amount that is not to exceed $25,000. And also this legislation authorizes a required budget transfer from the council contingency line item in order to pay for this. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there any questions?
To the chair. What exactly will they be doing? What exactly will they be doing for the $17,000?
Well, what CPS will do in this case, which that firm has been involved in hiring numerous members of the senior staff of the city, including my position, they will assist the council in developing a candidate profile. So we make sure that we're looking for a city manager with the attributes, skills, and knowledge and ability specific to what your desires are. And then they will use that profile basically to assist you with the review of applicants, looking at those as measured against that profile, assisting you in selecting candidates that will be selected for interviews, also be involved in a lot of the pre-screening work to determine whether those folks are qualified and otherwise should be considered for appointment, and then are involved in the after screening process also to follow up on background checks, employment checks, record checks, et cetera.
Okay, the profiles that you talk about, are you going to ask council to submit what they feel should be involved in some of those profile search?
Well, sure. Actually, Mr. Satow from CPS is here this evening, but my answer to that would be that he will be working with the council to assist you in basically helping him to create that profile.
Let me, if I could, just briefly describe the process for you so you
Who
know.
are you?
I'm Stuart Sato. I'm the consultant who's handled recruitments for the City of Surprise over the past 2 years, including Public Works Director, Communications Director, Human Resources Director, City Attorney, and currently the Community Development Director recruitment. In fact, we have 5 of the candidates here tonight at Council. So I would be the consultant handling the recruitment for your new city manager. To summarize very briefly, the process is this. The initial process includes ideally having a conversation with each member of council so that I can develop a good understanding of, number one, the type of person you're looking for in a new city manager, and also to understand from members of council what you see as the key issues and priorities that you would like to see a new manager come on and address, so that I can have an understanding when I go out and do the recruitment of sharing information to the potential candidates about what's going on in Surprise that might be attractive to a potential candidate, and also answer any questions for them, and also develop a brochure that will describe the community, the government structure, some of the financial statistics, and also the issues and priorities and what you as a council are looking for. I would like to have, ideally, 15 to 20-minute conversations with you. I can set those up via teleconference since we're located in Northern California, so that we can meet collectively. An ideal time would be probably next weekend, as early as next weekend at the retreat, so that I can share with you the information I've gathered, and you as a collective body can say, yes, we agree, these are the things that we think are the priorities, and this is the type of person we're looking for. We will then do the recruitment by placing advertising in key publications and websites, including diversity advertising, so we try to reach a diverse audience, such as the NFBPA, National Forum for Black Public Administrators, International Hispanic Network. I do the recruitment, we collect the resumes, I view the resumes, I deem who appears to be the best qualified candidates on paper based on what we've discussed in terms of the ideal candidate profile. I will conduct preliminary interviews primarily by phone, 45 minutes to an hour with the top candidates. Usually this will be about 15 candidates. I will bring my recommendations to council. I would meet with you. We will have a report in advance of our meeting. We'll go over the candidates I've interviewed and help you decide, make an informed decision on who you would like to invite forward to a formal interview process. I will be here to facilitate that interview process. I will conduct reference and background checks once you have decided on your top candidate, and then I'm there to assist with the negotiation of an employment agreement with council on the top candidate so that you have a successful recruitment. This is about a 4-month process from kickoff to appointment, but I would encourage you that to allow us to do the due diligence to make sure you have the best possible candidates that you will consider. And since you have an interim manager coming on board, I think you're going to have enough time for us to be able to do our work properly.
Great. Just as a point of clarification, this process, you're stepping into a process that's already begun. Advertising has already taken place. We have many resumes, applications that at the appropriate time we will direct staff to turn over to you and for your screening and to do your work. So we appreciate that explanation. And are there any other questions from council?
Chair.
Mr. Alton?
In the corporate world, a person, what you do is sometimes tagged
I know the word you're going to say. Headhunter?
Headhunter. And part of a headhunter's job, I believe, is to contact those people who are currently employed in this capacity and drop some seeds of thought, you might say, as to wouldn't it be great to work in the sun, where it hardly ever rains, and in a fast-growing metropolitan area such as Surprise. I understand what you're going to be doing is advertising this open position and not doing any calling.
That's not correct.
Okay.
Part of what we do is to develop the recruitment brochure and develop a mailing list. So we actually send a letter seeking interest or referrals of candidates, and we'll send that out to targeted audiences.
Good.
We will concentrate a lot of our efforts locally in the Arizona market because I have relationships with a number of different managers in the area, because I've done recruitments for the cities of Phoenix and Chandler and Peoria, Surprise, Apache Junction. We did the recruitment for the new manager in Paradise Valley who was just started in December. So I have a lot of connections. I know a lot of folks. And if those people aren't personally interested, I can get a lot of referrals of, you should contact this person, not only at the city manager level, but there may be top assistants in larger communities in the valley who may be ripe for an opportunity such as this to become the city manager. So it not only involves the advertising, it also involves active recruitment. And that's what you're really hiring us for, is to do the recruitment piece of the process.
Right, and I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you very
Exactly.
much.
And, email is also something that we use significantly now to make sure people are aware of the opportunity.
Thank you. Any further, Councilwoman?
Thank you. As the public is aware, it's a very difficult process. There's really, I wouldn't want to do it. There's a lot of involvement. It takes a lot of staff, a lot of time involved. You've got to be careful on who you're bringing on board, because this is such an important position for the city of Surprise. And so I'm glad to see that we are going this route instead of doing our initial 2-week period of hiring somebody. Anyways, which was a discussion. But my final thing is, Mr. Bowers came on board. He's the director of human resources. You came on board in January, and nobody gave you an introduction as far as I know. And today I didn't know who you were, and now I do. So the public now will know who you are also, who now working for the city of Surprise. So welcome on board.
Thank you.
Good job. Anything else?
Chair, yeah, I just had a couple more questions. So you said you've been on board for 2 years now, and just some examples of...
Well, me personally, CPS has done previous recruitments for the city. I believe that was when Mr. Pupo was your city manager. However, I was not part of the organization at that time. I've been doing recruiting for the last 5 years with CPS. So my active involvement with the city of Surprise started with the Public Works Director recruitment, and I don't think Mr. Beckley's here anymore, but however long ago Mr. Beckley started with the city is the first recruitment I conducted specifically for Surprise, and then the others that I mentioned since then.
Okay. And I certainly trust your expertise in this area, but what was the process that the city went through to select CPS? Was that just a kind of a given, or not to offend anyone? But I've been preaching transparent process for this, and I just want it to be so everyone knows that we're doing the right thing. We're looking for the very best. We're competing with Goodyear and Peoria now, and we need to compete for the very best for this job. So I would just want to understand the process.
Yeah, and I won't answer for Mr. Bowers. Perhaps you can answer that question. I was first approached to do the recruitment for Public Works Director, and based on basically the client satisfaction, they just asked us back for more. I don't know that Peoria is going to go out and recruit for a new manager. We'll have to see. I know Terry Ellis did announce his retirement after about 12 years. He's done a great job there. However, I'm not sure they're going to go out or not based on my knowledge of the city and having done recent work for them.
Through the chair. Are you going to be involved in the recruitment of those if they ask you to be?
I have there's no certainty if Peoria would ask us to do so. Our firm, when it was known as Shannon Associates, actually did the recruitment for Peoria that brought Terry Ellis to the city. And John Shannon has done performance evaluations on behalf of Terry Ellis and council over the past number of years. But I don't know that they would ask. I know there's a number of recruitments going on in the valley, which makes it a lot more challenging. I know there have been a number of unsuccessful recruitments locally where firms have had to go back out. It would be not my intent to do so. It's just not cost effective to continue the process, and so it would be my intent to try to bring you the best possible candidates. And having been in the market recently in Paradise Valley, albeit Paradise Valley is a much different type of community then surprise. We've done recent work in the city manager world, and I am currently active in recruiting 2 managers for the cities of Modesto and Elk Grove, California. So we've been in that world. We have connections, and maybe Mr. Bowers can answer your question.
Through the chair. That was spoken like a politician. My question is if your firm was asked to participate in hiring other West Valley city managers, would your firm do so if we chose to choose you also? Would you think that was a conflict, or would you go ahead and pursue other West Valley contracts?
No, typically cities will ask for, they'll put an RFP out and ask for a proposal. I would have to think about that seriously. We're in the business to do work. I don't see it as a conflict in handling 2 recruitments right now in Northern California. There are a number of firms handling multiple recruitments for same positions. It does allow us to be out in the world and to see various candidates. If they might not be interested, say, in one particular city, we could interest them in others. So I would say we would respond to an RFP, and if we were asked to do so, we would seriously consider taking on that work. But again, it's speculatory at this point in time.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, may I have an action, please?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything further? Hearing none, please cast your vote.
5 yes vote, 2 no vote, Johnson and Williams.
Thank you. Item number 26.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's my item, actually, and I need to see about removing it with an explanation.
Okay.
Taking it off the agenda.
For clarification, would you read the item, and then
Yes.
we'll turn that over to you, Councilwoman?
Discussion, consideration, and action on forming a committee to explore the possibility of term limits for mayor and council.
Thank you, ma'am.
My show now. After discussion, I had put this together and submitted it through our organization here in order to see about looking into having this as a possibility for us. It has come to my attention from the city attorney's office that the city of Surprise does not have the authority to create term limits for elected officials. And in particular, this analysis based on this statement was due to a legislative action with City of Scottsdale versus the Superior Court in 1968. And basically, it says, as such, for the City of Surprise to institute term limits for elected officials, state statutes must expressly or impliedly delegate the authority to the city. To date, state statutes do not grant municipalities the authority to limit terms, and therefore we don't have the authority to set term limits for elected officials. What I'm going to ask is Attorney Bailey to explain the difference why we are not able to do that, and due to charter city versus our city. So,
Attorney.
Mayor and council, in general in the state of Arizona, there's 2 forms of city. There's a common council city and a charter city. We are a common council city, therefore to act in any manner we need express authority from state statute. That is different than a charter city. A charter city, they are granted the constitutional power to create a charter, which is in effect their own constitution. And in doing so, that provides them the opportunity where they can set limits, whether it be term limits. It also allows them other opportunities to exercise certain powers. Because we are not a charter city and because the state statutes have not expressly given us the power to set term limits, we cannot do that.
Thank you. Are you satisfied with that?
yes,
Council?
I am. It's unfortunate, I think, but that's the rule, and that's what we will abide by, and we will move forward from this. And maybe at some point it could be addressed at a later date when the laws change. But in the meantime, I'm going to make the request that this be removed and no further discussion on it.
Thank you. Point of order here. Do we need to vote for removal or just simply remove?
Mayor and Council, this was an item that was placed on the agenda by Councilmember Foro,
So she can
and
remove it.
she could remove it if she did not want it to be
Good.
considered.
Thank you very much.
It's removed.
It's removed. Item number 27. Now, on this item, I believe there's been a request to have discussion but to take no action.
Correct.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you tonight was agendized for action. However, some events have happened where we feel that it's appropriate to do a presentation this evening and then to request continuance to a later date. Somewhere between now and the next 30 days would be appropriate. I'm just going to overview the project, and then I'm going to introduce Mike DeWitt from APS to get into more details. For the past several months, the city has been working with APS, property owners. Actually, APS has been working with the city, property owners, the city of Surprise, Peoria, Maricopa County, and the State Lands Department, and the developers in the Northwest Valley area to work on a project to locate power lines in order to supply power to this growing area. They're referred to as 500 kV and 250 kV lines. And again, Mike will get into the explanation of those. APS will eventually make a recommendation to the Corporation Commission to site the project and determine what corridor that's going to be along. So our staff has been working with our current developers as well as our future entitlements, as well as the State Lands Department to determine what would be the most appropriate corridor. The city of Peoria took a position supporting State Route 74 as the route. State Lands Department initially took a position to support routes south of State Route 74. Maricopa County designated the State Route 74 as a scenic corridor. So as you can see, it's pretty contentious. There's all kinds of opinions about this, and it's a pretty emotional issue. So we want to make sure that when we bring it to you for a staff recommendation that we have everything all ironed out. We thought we did, and State Lands Department called us this week and asked us told us that they were going to consider an alternative route, possibly consider an alternative route. So therefore, what we decided to do was wait until we had a little bit more information and continue the item. But again, thinking that tonight would be a good opportunity to overview the project for you, we left it on the agenda. As I mentioned, this is a hot issue for the State Lands Department as well as the developers in that area. State Lands Department, the mission of the State Lands Department is to get the highest value for their land. Obviously, so is that of the development community. And our stake in it is not directly financial, but clearly we want to have projects that succeed in the city. So again, we want to find the best route for all. In light of this change, again, I'm recommending that we do a presentation only, and I would like to turn it over to Mike DeWitt with APS, and he'll get into some more detail. And Stephanie of our IT department is actually going to come up and pull up his presentation before he gets up here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops. Wrong one. Is it as big as I guess? There you go.
There you go.
Okay.
Mayor and members of the council, thanks a lot for allowing me to come and speak to you tonight. I'm assuming that you guys are all looking at your screen of the map that's up right now. Like Centra said, I've been with APS for almost 23 years. I've been doing these power line siting projects for about 7.5 years now. This particular project was brought before the public, the first public outreach, about June of 2007. Like Centra mentioned, we've worked with the City of Surprise staff quite extensively, along with State Land, Peoria, Maricopa County. Obviously, when you site one of these high voltage power lines someplace, it also brings out the development community quite a bit because there's a belief on their part that high voltage power lines near or through their properties are going to reduce the value and reduce the vision of what they believe is going to be imminent in their development. So one of the things that APS does is run through a fairly extensive public process to try to gain some consensus on where the preferred route should go. And that is the process that we're working on right now. The map that you see before you has a lot of solid brown lines on it and some lighter tan lines. Those lines are all opportunities to get from the TS5 substation, which is shown in Buckeye, over on the far southwest portion of the map, to the TS9 substation, which is located in Peoria, which is just south of State Route 74 near the entrance to Lake Pleasant Regional Park. And as you might imagine, as you go from point A to point B there are a number of different alternatives that you can put together to make a complete route. Part of the charge of my team that I'm working with at APS is to get not only the comments from the key stakeholders and the jurisdictions in the area, but also existing residents, and then also to get some input from APS departments such as our land department and our construction department. We have an environmental consultant which goes over some of the cultural and biological issues in the area. And all of that's put together in a filing before the Arizona Corporation Commission. A line of this size, APS or any utility can't just decide to go build it somewhere. We present this in front of the Arizona Corporation Commission. We typically present what we call a preferred route with 2 or 3 alternatives that are acceptable to us but aren't our preferred route for one reason or another. There's then open hearings in front of the State Siting Committee. They will eventually make a recommendation to the ACC, and the ACC will either approve or deny the project. So ultimately, APS puts together this project, presents what we believe through our outreach process and our studies is the preferred route and the best route for all considered, and then the Corporation Commission makes a final decision on it. Where we're at right now, and Centra alluded to this a little bit, is there are some differing opinions, particularly with the State Route 74 route. The map that you're looking at is a jurisdictional map so that you can see the boundaries of Peoria, Surprise, and Buckeye. If this was an ownership map, you would see a lot of blue on this map for Arizona state lands. They manage 80% of the total land mass in this study area. This study area is a little over 400 square miles. I've met on 2 different occasions with the State Land Commissioner and a number of different times with his staff, and their particular concern right now is that they do not want to bear the burden of infrastructure development. They don't want infrastructure development on their vacant lands for, like Centra said, for fear that it would bring the value of the land down. What they are recommending are routes to the south of State Route 74, which is going to go through entitled properties and actually in some cases go through existing residential. That is something that the Arizona Corporation Commission has not supported in the past, where they would prefer that utilities sight lines on vacant property as opposed to where there's existing residential development. Part of what I've done is we had expected that we would have our preferred route by the 1st of January. And because of the meetings that Centra alluded to, because of some other meetings that have been going on with some key stakeholders, I've withheld APS's position on this as far as a preferred route until some of these meetings can take place. One of those is a resolution from the City of Surprise, of course, that we would include as part of our filing to the Arizona Corporation Commission. And I might add that just because there's a consensus of agreement between the jurisdictions and the agencies, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the route that the Corporation Commission will ultimately pick. And so with that, I'll open it up to any questions, Mayor, that you or the council might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions? There are no questions. So I think
we just go ahead and do the route tonight then, because I've never come to a meeting before where there's no questions.
I think we're looking forward to staff recommendation and to when this comes back, and so we'll have some questions.
The last thing I want to add, Mayor, and just so that you know, in the event that that APS were to move forward on this project before the city put forth a formal resolution, and we don't believe that we would do that based on where we're at right now with state land and some of the other stakeholders, that doesn't mean that your resolution would be disregarded. There's about a 2 or 3 month period between when we will announce our preferred route and when we'll file it with the Corporation Commission. At any point in time in there, any comments or any position from the city would be put in our application.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
One statement.
Councilwoman Forrell?
Sintra, next time we need a color because we can't see this screen that's so small, and that screen is too far. So color, please.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's going to be continued.
Okay, no action.
Motion to-
We'll move to item number 28.
Mayor and council, if I may, if you would actually
I
continue.
move
that-
to continue
Continue.
item number 27.
Second.
Motion to continue second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you. Now, number 28.
Consideration and action on items to be placed on future agendas.
Okay. Is there anybody that would like to put anything on a future agenda?
Mayor, does just a clarification. If a subject is brought up, does it necessarily have to appear on the agenda of the forthcoming meeting, or it's just a future
agendas?
Okay. What I would like to see brought up, and that is I would like to report back to the council and staff and also the citizens as to my findings in the travel and procedure review that I was asked to do. That won't happen for one or about a month or 2 months. At the same time, I would like to have a consideration of revisiting the contingency, is it contingency fund that was taken away? Discretionary fund. I believe that there are some reasons for it, just a matter of doing business. It's hard to, well, it's not hard to dig into your pocket to buy somebody a cup of coffee, but if it's on city business, the city ought to be able to pay for it. And so it's a matter of conducting business or business developing for the city and not having the wherewithal to pay for a lunch or something like that. So the $20,000 that was originally designed for each council member and their district is probably too much, but I think there should be a small amount of money available.
Interrupt you, sir.
Okay.
Your point is.
I have that coming up.
Your point is well taken, but we don't want to discuss the item this evening.
No.
So I think we're going to direct staff that we would like a workshop on policies, procedures, and discretionary funds. Additionally, I would like to see a workshop on the new city hall layout, adjacencies, and security that will be in place at the new city hall. And further, I think it might be appropriate to have a short work session to discuss potential work sessions. I know that staff has several in mind that they want to talk to us about, like what happens at MAG and how that works, transportation issues. And so perhaps we can take a half an hour to an hour and talk about what staff wants to share with us in a work session and what we would like we'd like to see come forward.
Through your chair.
Yes, sir.
One other item that I'd like to have put on some kind of an agenda, not necessarily right away, but is to revisit the ethics policy and to solicit the help of our city attorney, in order to come up with something that is a standard within the industry.
Yeah, we can discuss that. I believe there is a completed ethics policy that's in place, just hasn't been brought forth because we were going to bring it forth with the items that you had in mind. We can bring it individually. It's ready to go right now. So is there any other direction to staff for future agenda items? Hearing none, let's see. We don't need to take any action on that, but we do need to go into executive session. So may I have a motion and a second to go into executive session?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second, please. All in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes, yes, and or aye. Thank you. Adjourn.